The Bosphorus Strait lies peaceful under sunlight, yet this silence signals an approaching catastrophe for the ancient city. Thousands of seagulls fly frantically across the sky, signaling an abnormal pressure change in the atmosphere above. The sea surface suddenly recedes hundreds of meters from shore, revealing a dry seabed filled with debris. From the horizon, a massive dark gray wall of water rises vertically, completely blocking out the sunlight. The 80-meter-high wave moves at the speed of sound, crashing directly into the crowded coastline. Seawater violently collides with the breakwater, creating a white column of water taller than the buildings themselves. The magnificent Bosphorus Bridge shakes violently and snaps in two steel cables, snapping into the air instantly. Cars currently in traffic slide off the bridge deck, falling freely into the swirling black water below. Millions of tons of seawater flood the city, crushing every architectural structure standing in its destructive path. The ancient Galata Tower cannot withstand the water pressure, collapsing completely and vanishing into the raging flood. Walking streets turn into deadly rushing rivers, sweeping away vehicles and heavy signs with uncontrollable force. The Hagia Sophia stands tall, before being completely swallowed by the giant wave covering its main dome. Inside the cathedral, cold water breaks the main doors, rising high enough to touch the ancient mosaics. A massive oil tanker is lifted into the air by waves, crashing directly into the tall skyscrapers. Beneath the murky water, concrete fragments and interior furniture float, suspended in the deep silence of destruction. The citywide power system explodes sequentially, creating massive fires burning brightly on the surface of the water. Viewed from above, Istanbul is now just a vast sea of water with no signs of life. A man stands on the highest hill, his face pale as he watches the city submerge underwater. This is the worst-case scenario, when the North Anatolian tectonic plate fractures beneath the Sea of Marmara. Welcome to the apocalypse of Turkey, where history is completely wiped out by the power of nature. The sun rises over the beautiful Aegean coast, tourists enjoying their holiday completely unaware of the looming danger. Deep beneath the ocean floor, two massive tectonic plates are being compressed together to their absolute breaking point. A slight tremor runs through the city, just enough to shake the coffee cups on the roadside tables. Locals pause briefly due to familiarity with earthquakes, then continue their daily work as if nothing had happened. But this time is different, as geological sensors begin recording numbers that hit record-breaking high levels. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently as a 9.2 magnitude earthquake tears through the Mediterranean seabed. Beneath the ocean, a geological plate collapses, pushing billions of tons of water upward to the surface. On the coast, a strange phenomenon begins. The seawater recedes at a dizzyingly fast and unnatural speed. Fishing boats that were anchored are suddenly stranded, lying tilted on the wet and muddy sand bottom. Curious crowds of tourists rush to the beach, filming and taking photos of this bizarre and strange sight. They do not know this is a deadly sign. The calm before the wrath eventually arrives here. Thousands of fish flop on the sand, trying to find their way back to the vanished water. A child finds ancient gold coins exposed under the mud layer when the water recedes far away. Stray dogs in the city start barking frantically as they sense the imminent danger approaching the city. Flocks of seagulls fly frantically upwards, creating a dark cloud that completely obscures the blue sky above. An old local man shouts for everyone to run, but his warning voice is ignored by the crowd. The horizon begins to distort. A thin black line appears and grows larger with every passing second. The atmosphere suddenly becomes terrifyingly quiet. The wind stops blowing, and all sounds seem to be swallowed. Then a low sound resonates from afar, sounding like the engines of thousands of airplanes approaching together. The distant sea surface begins to foam white as the giant wall of water becomes clearly visible. Those standing furthest out on the shoals suddenly realize something, and they start turning around to run. The roar of the ocean grows louder, drowning out the siren that has just been activated too late. The water begins to flow back, but not gently. Instead, it is a raging and angry flood. Tourists abandon phones and bags, trying to race against death to reach higher ground for safety. A woman stumbles, looks back behind her, and sees the wall of water has blocked out the sun. Traffic police try to direct the flow, but chaos has completely broken down all order and control. Buses packed with people are stuck in the road, passengers banging on windows in sheer desperation. The first wave crashes into the stone embankment, creating a massive explosion like a bomb shaking the ground. Seawater sprays hundreds of meters high, carrying boulders and debris that smash into the nearby buildings. Trees along the road are uprooted instantly, floating away in the water like tiny wooden matchsticks. Romantic seaside cafes disappear in a split second under the immense weight and pressure of the ocean. The dark black water begins to seep into small streets, moving faster than a sprinting human runner. People climb onto car roofs, but the water quickly rises, sweeping away both people and vehicles together. A luxury yacht is swept inland by waves, crashing through and destroying the lobby of a five-star hotel. The power system is flooded. Transformer stations explode, creating terrifying blue electric sparks across the darkened city. The Galata Bridge begins to shake, metal joints groaning under the immense pressure of the water flow. Fishermen on the bridge throw away rods, running desperately towards shore as the bridge begins to tilt. The seawater rises high enough to overflow the railings, turning the bridge into a massive dam. Basements of high-rise buildings flood quickly, trapping those sheltering inside within a darkened, watery tomb. Air raid sirens ring out across Istanbul, but now they sound like a mournful funeral song for all. The water level continues to rise, swallowing traffic signs and streetlights in a matter of mere seconds. An ambulance is swept away by waves, its beacon still rotating brightly in the murky, rushing water. Birds no longer fly, the sky remains, with only black clouds and the deafening roar of the ocean. At the Bosphorus Strait, two water currents collide, creating a giant swirling water column reaching the sky. Centuries-old buildings begin to crack, unable to withstand the unprecedented water pressure pushing against their walls. Breakwater walls crumble. Concrete fragments become lethal weapons within the violently moving water currents sweeping the city. No escape for those who stayed. The city has become a giant water trap with no exit. This is the beginning of the end, when nature reclaims exactly what belongs to it by force. A large public clock stops, its hands pointing exactly to the moment the disaster officially began here. The screen fades to dark, leaving only the sound of rushing water and survivors' heavy breathing. The dark wall of water collides with the city, creating a shockwave sound like a massive bomb exploding. A gigantic cloud of dust and water rises high, completely obscuring the tall skyscrapers from human view. The small Maiden's Tower amidst the sea is crushed instantly, vanishing into the white foam of destruction. Thousands of shipping containers at the port are tossed up like multicolored toy bricks by the wave. These steel blocks smash into coastal buildings, destroying the concrete structures in a mere fraction of seconds. The Galata Bridge is lifted off its supports, snapping into three pieces and floating freely downstream endlessly. A tram running on the bridge slides into the water, sinking slowly amidst the screeching of metal. Floodwaters rush into the Golden Horn, turning the historic harbor into a giant, deadly whirlpool of destruction. Topkapi Palace on the high hill begins to slide as its rock foundation is eroded by water. The Grand Bazaar's dome collapses, mud flooding in to destroy thousands of gold and gemstone shops instantly. At Taksim Square, water erupts from the subway station entrance like a deadly fountain of high pressure. Old apartment buildings collapse sequentially like a domino effect, creating a thick fog of dust and debris. A double-decker bus is swept away, hitting a utility pole and bending into a U-shape instantly. Glass panels from high-rise buildings shatter, falling down like deadly sharp rain of knives onto the water. Besiktas Stadium turns into a giant reservoir, the stands submerged deep under a sea of floating trash. Dark sea water seeps into ancient libraries, wiping out thousands of priceless historical books and manuscripts forever. A coastal lighthouse is snapped in half by waves, its beacon extinguishing in the dark rushing water. The magnificent Bosphorus Bridge cables start snapping, giant steel wires whipping the air like deadly leather whips. The bridge deck breaks in two, dropping hundreds of cars freely into the swirling water below the strait. Heavy-duty trucks falling into the water create massive columns of water as tall as city buildings. The Hagia Sophia stands firm for a moment before the giant wave crashes in from directly behind. Water shatters the upper windows, flooding into the main hall with unstoppable and devastating power. Mosaic angels look down at the rising dark water swallowing the ancient marble floor beneath them. The Blue Mosque nearby suffers the same fate, its 6 minarets shaking and tilting dangerously in the wind. Underground, the Marmaray tunnel system is crushed by pressure, seawater flooding in like a massive waterfall. A train moving in the tunnel is stopped by water. Lights inside the cars go out completely. Above ground, gas stations explode, creating massive fireballs, rising amidst the vast sea of floodwater. Spilled oil from sunken ships catches fire, turning the sea surface into a burning hell on Earth. A rescue helicopter tries to lower but is knocked down into the water by the firestorm winds. Modern office buildings are stripped of their glass exteriors, leaving only the bare concrete skeleton standing. Water rises to floor 5, 10, then 15, reaching speeds so fast that no one can react. Giant LED billboards short circuit, flashing distorted images before finally going black and silent forever. The Republic Monument at Taksim is broken by waves, the statue's head rolling on the shattered bricks. A pack of stray dogs swims in the water, trying to climb onto a floating roof to survive. Luxury cars float aimlessly, crashing into each other to form massive piles of twisted scrap metal. An out-of-control oil tanker plows straight into a residential area, flattening dozens of small houses instantly. Inside houses, furniture floats chaotically, while family photos sink slowly to the cold, muddy bottom. All sounds of life are replaced by the monotonous and devastating roar of the rushing water. Green parks are now just muddy swamps filled with piles of trash and dead animal bodies. Highways turn into vast rivers, completely separating different districts and cutting off all escape routes. A group of survivors clings to a rooftop, waving a flag for help in hopeless desperation. A second wave begins to form offshore, larger and even more powerful than the first one. Despair covers the soaking wet faces, as they realize there is nowhere left to hide. Istanbul, the jewel of the world, is now sinking into the darkness of the deep ocean. Lonely minaret towers stick out of the water like fingers begging for forgiveness from the heavens. Rain begins to fall heavier, mixing with salty seawater to create the bitter taste of disaster. No more car horns, no more music, only the deadly silence of nature remains in charge. Humans have lost this battle, and the price to pay is the entire civilization built here. Highways leading out of the city are completely gridlocked, turning into a massive, motionless parking lot of vehicles. Seeing rising water behind, thousands abandoned cars running on foot in a state of absolute and total panic. A fuel truck crashes within the crowd, exploding to create a deadly fire barrier blocking the escape route. The subway system turns into giant drainage pipes, drowning thousands of people trapped underground in the dark tunnels. The national power grid collapses completely, leaving Istanbul, the city of lights, as a giant black hole. Fires from ruptured gas pipelines remain the only source of light left in the destroyed and dark city. Telecommunication systems are paralyzed, making mobile phones useless bricks in the hands of the desperate citizens trying to call. Field hospitals are flooded. Doctors watch helplessly as medicines float away in the dirty and contaminated water current. On rooftops not yet flooded, thousands of small fires are lit for warmth in the cold, dark night. A mother holds her child tight, shivering under a thin blanket as the night temperature drops drastically low. Clean water becomes scarce. People start catching rainwater to drink, even though it is full of ash dust. The remaining supermarkets are smashed by crowds fighting for food in a fit of extreme hunger and thirst. Police and military try to maintain order, but they are too few compared to the sea of panic. The suburban dam begins to crack due to heavy rain, threatening to create a double disaster for the city. Rescue helicopters fly around overhead but cannot land because there are no safe landing spots left anywhere. Changing currents bring animal carcasses and piles of trash washing up where people are currently taking shelter. A group of people tries to build a raft from scrap wood to move to a safer high building. Children's crying echoes in the night, mixing with the wind whistling through the broken window frames everywhere. The wealthy, trapped in penthouse apartments, realize that money is now completely meaningless in this new reality. The water level refuses to recede, turning streets into a dark, hellish version of the Venice canals. Thousand-year-old cultural heritage sites soaked in saltwater begin an irreversible process of decay and destruction. The basement of the archaeological museum is completely flooded, wiping out artifacts that were never revealed to public. A large fire erupts at a chemical plant, releasing a column of toxic yellow smoke covering the area. People cough and cover noses with wet clothes as the strong chemical smell begins to spread in the air. Migratory birds fly off course, falling into the water dead in masses due to poisoning from smoke and gas. Ataturk Airport is submerged in a sea of water, planes floating and crashing like plastic toys. The runway cracks open, signaling the end of all air traffic operations for many years to come. Navy ships try to approach the shore but are blocked by debris and wrecks clogging the path. The long night seems endless, each passing hour a survival challenge for the exhausted people waiting for help. Dawn finally arrives, but the sunlight only reveals more clearly the devastation of the disaster to the survivors. Buildings that were once symbols of prosperity now stand bare, like dry skeletons in the morning light. The water surface is flat as a mirror, reflecting the blue sky, hiding the death lying beneath it. A man finds his crushed car. Inside are the mementos of his family that are now lost forever. International rescue teams begin to land, bringing fragile hope for those who are still alive in the ruins. But for the city of Istanbul, things will never return to how they were before this happened. Muddy roads will take years to clear, and mental scars will never heal for the survivors. Scientists arrive at the scene, recording painful data to warn the future generations about the disaster risks. Children born during the disaster will grow up with stories of the day the sea swallowed the city. Nature has proven its absolute power, and humans are just temporary guests on this volatile planet's surface. We rebuild, not to conquer nature, but to learn how to live with it in harmony. Istanbul will rise again, but the scar of today will be etched into human memory forever. If we do not listen to the earth, the next disaster is only a matter of time. Cherish every peaceful moment, because tomorrow no one knows what will come to change our lives.